to avoid conflicts of interest or appearance of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have any conflict of interest in this particular meeting and the subject matter they need to disclose prior to our meeting? Is everybody good? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to ask Brian to summarize where we are at this point with this proposed opinion.
Sure. So I sent out after our meeting, I guess officially 2 months ago now, since we are in October, our meeting at the end of August, there's a lot of discussion about changing the opinion and rewriting the opinion, particularly opinion number 4. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we're all looking at the same thing here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so we can read the text a little bit easier. So this was the focus of our discussion. Won't rehash everything that we discussed at that subcommittee meeting, but needless to say, I think we all saw that the comments received really focused on opinion number 4. And opinion number 4 addresses kind of this question of, I think, really the buyer's attorney, the closing attorney that is completing work that ultimately, yes, it benefits the buyer and it benefits seller, but it's really, we're talking about seller's obligations. And I think we were focusing our discussion of that concept on things like making sure that that seller is providing clear title and maybe any sort of curative efforts that need to occur and things of that nature. So the opinion was originally shaped in a way that, can lawyer A essentially charge seller a fee for completing work and canceling seller's lien? And the answer was no, unless you do X, Y, and Z. And we changed that to say yes, provided that. So we kind of shifted the answer and the default there being that yes, you can, as long as the buyer's attorney has provided advance notice to the seller of the charge and has been provided a reasonable opportunity to object. So it kind of sets up the situation where as long as you provide that advance warning, that type of charge can actually be kind of ethically imposed in the transaction. Now, I'll kind of just say, and I've sent this to you a couple of times, I think at this point. So I think the track changes that you see on your screen kind of speak for themselves. We did talk about, do we want to try to incorporate administrative expenses, the wire fee and things of that nature into this opinion? Because as we discussed in the last meeting, I don't think the opinions or the subcommittee's intent in creating this opinion was ever to really encompass those types of really kind of run-of-the-mill administrative fees in this opinion, to say that a buyer or a closing attorney could not basically charge or seek reimbursement of those types of expenses from the seller when it's really associated with seller's role in the transaction, wiring the funds over, things of that nature. So the first alternative here that I crossed out based upon Amy's feedback before, and I have to say I tend to agree with her. We kind of talked about maybe we can incorporate that notion about administrative expenses into opinion number 4, or maybe we should have a completely different opinion that addresses that. So alternative number 1 here that's highlighted was the attempt to incorporate the administrative expenses into the opinion. But I think Amy had previously expressed the preference for alternative number 2, and that is creating a separate standalone inquiry and opinion about administrative expenses that you see here in what is now new opinion number 5. So I think at this point, the feedback that we're looking for is just kind of, what do we think about this opinion? Is this opinion something, is it in a position where we feel comfortable recommending it for republication? That's where it stands right now. It was published before, we received negative comments sent back to subcommittee. So anything that we produce, we would need to republish, see if there's additional comment, and kind of take the next steps from there, see if that additional comment really warrants further study or so forth. Or do we feel like the language still needs to be tweaked a little bit? And I think that was the purpose of this meeting, to see, we're meeting as a full ethics committee next Thursday. And it kind of feels like we're either right on the cusp, or maybe we do have something that we feel good about as a subcommittee. So that was, I guess that's the focus. And I guess at that, I would just open it up for discussion as to how everybody feels about the opinion as it's currently drafted.
I'll speak up, Brian. I think it's very well drafted. I like the way you wrote inquiry number 5. So I'm in favor of it as drafted.
I agree. I think it's time to republish and see if we have answered any questions or maybe raised more.
Right.
Hey, sorry, I was trying to unmute and the screen changed on me a little bit. I had a question about in opinion 5. There was, and maybe you sent out a revision that I missed, but that last sentence referred to opinion 4 with regard to administrative expenses, which has been deleted now from.
Let's see, hang on a second. I'm trying to orient myself. The expenses covered by this opinion do not include administrative fees charged by lawyer A for time spent in carrying out the task for seller, as those fees are governed by opinion number 4. So I think that was more so a reference to say that, and it really maybe it's a kind of a sloppy drafting on my part. The expenses covered by this opinion being opinion number 5. Not the entirety of the opinion, but just basically saying that those types of administrative expenses that we're addressing in opinion number 5 are not supposed to be dealing with the, well, actually, no way. I'm going to go back on that. I think I did mean the full opinion. That basically the notion of what we are talking about in this full opinion, that closing lawyers who are dealing with represented sellers cannot charge the seller absent some sort of either prior notice or the agreement by the seller. But that, I guess that was my attempt to kind of, in a conclusory way, declare that this opinion really is not touching those administrative fees that are tasked to the, I guess, to the entirety of the transaction. I don't know, maybe that sentence is just not, if it's not really helping the situation, and maybe it's not even necessary.
I guess I think thrown by the use of administrative fees. I was thinking it was intended to be administrative expenses, or maybe it was just fees. I'm not sure, but I think it was that combination of administrative fees made me think that we were actually referring to administrative expenses that we had taken out of opinion 4.
But if that's the case, then 5 doesn't make sense, right? Because we say you can charge for these expenses. We've now said you can charge for fees and you can charge for expenses if you do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Right? Yeah, maybe we pull the last sentence.
Just take it out.
I just delete
What
that.
do we not include? Like what do you think we're not including by that sentence?
I'm not certain that that's really necessary. Now that I'm reading this, it's kind of hearing that. That's where I'm like, it just kind of clouds the issue again. So yeah, I think that's
can I suggest something? What if we remove the word administrative? Does not include fees charged. Because really we're trying to set the distinction between a fee and an expense.
But I think because we come to the same conclusion either way, I don't know why we want to create that exception.
I see what you mean. Yes.
We just take that out. Just let it
So
end
just take
on.
that out.
If we can just simply end on, the example, the sentence that articulates those types of example fees. Okay, that's a great catch.
I agree with that.
With that, I would propose we take it back to the committee to be propose republication. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
May I be another squeaky wheel with one question?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. And I never noticed this as many times as I've read this opinion until today. But in the very first paragraph of the opinion, it says buyer retained lawyer A to represent buyer in a residential real estate transaction. Seller declined to be represented by lawyer A. And I'm wondering if represented is the right word, because I was trying to look real quick before the committee meeting to confirm, but I recalled the ethics opinion back from 2005 that says you can prepare sellers' documents if you make it clear that you don't represent them as the buyer's attorney. And so I wondered if representation was the right word, because it's really and I couldn't remember if there was an opinion since that maybe made this fine. And I was looking really quickly and didn't come across anything. So forgive me if I've forgotten something I should remember, but.
Yeah, no, that's Christina. I think this is one of those things that across the opinions, there is another opinion that refers to the dual representation. And so I think maybe it's been different opinions that kind of refer to this in a similar way. I think I have personally kind of referred to it as a representation, a dual representation that does result in a conflict. That essentially the conflict is something that is cured by everybody's agreement to the procedure, but also something that the state bar has kind of agreed to, or seen as permissible. But I see what you're saying. I don't know. Do the other subcommittee members does that give you pause to see the word representation with regards to sellers' kind of potential relationship with lawyer A in the transaction?
I was okay with it with representation because I think that's more of, I think the average lawyer hears representation to create an attorney-client relationship.
Right.
And we've clearly said this does not create an attorney-client relationship. So they've now declined, or maybe the seller has declined an attorney-client relationship with lawyer A. But I mean, I think in my head, they've declined the attorney-client relationship. We can still do these tasks for the benefit of our own client, but that still doesn't mean we represent you, even if we charge you for them.
Right.
Would it be better to say something like seller declined to receive legal services from lawyer A?
I'd rather call it, if we're not going to call it represented, I'd rather say decline to be in an attorney-client relationship.
Okay.
Or I was thinking, just decline to have lawyer A prepare the seller's documents, to be that precise about it.
But isn't what we do in the opinion then go on and draft those seller documents? I mean, isn't that really what we're letting them do in some cases?
With regard to
like a satisfaction that is really the seller's obligation, but the buyer's attorney does it and we charge the seller for it.
Yeah, maybe we're just parsing words a little too much.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, Christina, and I think I guess I'm personally okay with it. I could see Amy's suggestion of the seller declined to enter into an attorney-client relationship with lawyer A. That's probably a bit more specific and descriptive. The represented is kind of one of those things that I think we all know what we mean, but we don't want to necessarily send the wrong message. Mm-hmm. I need to. That's a very thoughtful comment here, Christine, on Friday afternoon. How dare you?
I'm so sorry. You're gonna kick me out the committee, aren't you?
No, that's the sort of thing that we need. I feel like I'm personally torn on this one.
Yeah, I know what we all mean. I wouldn't want it to be twisted at some other point or confused, very innocently.
So I think maybe the alternative here would be to enter into an attorney-client relationship with lawyer A. I know, Christina, you had mentioned seller declined to have lawyer A prepare seller documents.
Yeah, I thought I read that opinion from years ago to mean that there was no attorney-client relationship. And so that's why I was trying to be more specific about, yes, I'm preparing these documents for you, but I do not represent you. And I'm doing this for the convenience of my client, the buyer.
Right.
But Amy is very right in saying, yes, but you're preparing the satisfaction possibly for the satisfaction of the mortgage. And, that's a valid point.
Right. So I guess that would be another alternative, or just to say seller declined to have lawyer A prepare seller's documents and retained separate counsel.
Yeah.
Or seller declined to retain lawyer A.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that would be something, because then you're retaining them. You're not necessarily indicating a representation or attorney-client relationship, but you're retaining them
Right.
to prepare documents. Or what do you think about that, Christina?
How about write out the whole thing. Seller declined to retain lawyer A to prepare
Yeah.
seller documents for the transaction.
I would just leave retain lawyer A, period,
Okay.
and instead retained separate counsel lawyer B.
Yeah, I'm fine with any of that.
That way we avoid representation and we don't talk about refusing to let them draft things for you.
Right. Oh, I need an and there. I like that better. Is that, Christina, what do you think?
I think that I think we're not going to have the perfect solution. And
Yeah.
I think that's as close as we're going to get.
Right.
It's also consistent with those first two sentences, I think.
Yes.
Everybody's being retained or not retained.
Right.
That's what
right.
I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great catch. All right. Well, are we at a spot where we're satisfied with this to be presented to the ethics committee next week?
Mhm.
All right.
Yes.
John, I haven't heard from you. John, how are you feeling?
Soaking it in. I was okay with it before, but I think Christina's point is good. So I'm fine with that change being made as well. And then I think you're going to get some comments. Was what it looks like anyway from what Amy sent earlier.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's true. Although they are still working off the no response. So maybe the yes if response will alleviate some of those concerns.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
May change their position.
Right. Yeah, I'll be curious to see. Well, and we will send it. That's one of our processes. If somebody sends in a comment, then they will receive direct notice of the new opinion that's been approved. So they'll have access to that, and we'd love to hear their thoughts. And anyone else who, it looked like some people had actually watched this video of our discussion before. So anybody who's watching, please send in your comments if you have them. But nevertheless, I think this. I guess it sounds like we have a consensus that this can be published to the ethics committee, and you all can make the appropriate motion at that time. I don't think you necessarily, Alan, I don't think you need a motion in the subcommittee. You can ask for it if you want, but I think really the motion comes at the ethics committee that the subcommittee would then support for republication. So
Okay. Sounds good.
all
Well,
right.
is there any other discussion? Any other points that anybody wants to make before we? I think we're in agreement to request the ethics committee to republish this modified opinion.
Agreed.
Anything else?
Agreed.
Anything else to be brought before the subcommittee today? Brian, as always, thank you so much for your good work on this.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you
thank
guys.
you.
Thank
This
you.
has been a great subcommittee to work with, and hopefully we'll have something like John said. I bet we're going to get some comments, so we may need to talk again, but we'll see where we go.
We'll try to set new records or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Have a